Hello, everyone. This is Jamie,
And I'm still Spencer.
and we are back with another round of Who is the Mole Season 5, the after show. So,
Another exciting quick round this time, at least.
yeah, this is one of our quickest rounds to date. It's because there's an odd number of players in the game, and generally speaking, like our odd number rounds are shorter because we typically have just one main assignment. Sometimes we'll do a small twist, but it's just one main assignment, whereas our even number rounds have at least two. So,
Hmm.
and we didn't even have a twist this time, so it was literally just one assignment, one and done.
Yeah. Yeah. We can't be fancy all the time. We can't be super creative.
Mhm.
Like,
I think
sometimes you
that's
just get
pretty
one
fun.
assignment and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but this is a Spencer assignment round, so that means it's a good round.
No, it just
So
means you have to listen to me talk more than I already do.
yeah. So where do we want to start this tonight, Spencer?
Well, according to my notes, thing we want to start with, it's before picking the treasure, actually, because I
Oh,
thought it was particularly funny. While we were doing last execution, we had
oh,
this is the
Queen Jessica.
Yes, this is the first time that we had. I can't remember if we actually did do this for the other ones, but like Jessica noticed that we were switching who was posting thumbprints for the execution. So Jamie would post name and thumbprint, and then I would like mix it up a little bit. And so
Yes.
Jessica's like, "Oh
And
yeah,
and as a side note, we had already planned to use that as a question for the next quiz. Like we had already decided that.
yes." Like we had specifically planned like how we're going to switch it up in anticipation of the next quiz. And Jessica goes, "I see you guys switching up like the questions. I'm taking note of this. I'm so ready for this next quiz already."
Mm-hmm.
So I loved that we were called out and Jessica figured out what one of our questions was going to be.
Icon. Honestly, there's no bad Jessica content this
Mm-hmm.
season so far. Like she's definitely one of the biggest surprises for me. Because like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that she would do well, and she's
No.
like still in it and doing pretty well so far.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just like it's especially with like this question in particular, like this is one of like when we're starting to ramp up the difficulty on the quiz, this is always a question we throw in because almost no one expects like that question to pay attention about like who posts the screen or not like that. So you usually get comments people being like, "Wow, that was a really hard question. I didn't think to take notes on that." Um, so now it was funny to actually be called out on it. And the next thing that had happened with picking the treasurer, the group had a surprisingly easy time picking the treasurer. This time they had just kind of talked for a few hours after the fact. They mainly wanted to go with either drunk Alex or high Jessica. Um, and they ultimately decided to go with Jessica. And so it was nice that now that Jessica gets her turn as treasurer, for the assignment we needed to divide the group into three trios. She got back to me with who the three trios were within 2 hours of me asking, which like I was just absolutely floored. That is the
That's like
quickest.
lightning speed for them all.
Absolutely. It usually takes at least like 8 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours for these kind of decisions to be made. So I'm in love with Jessica for the fact that she did it so
If
quickly.
it's the All Stars cast, then 24 hours will pass and nothing will be decided.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love
So
them. Oh my gosh.
so yes, Jessica gets my vote for best treasurer because she can at least make a decision very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was all of the pre-assignment stuff I wanted to
Yeah,
go over.
yeah. So and this was one of your assignments this round, so it's deal or no deal. So do you mind going over like the specific parameters and how we
Mhm.
like figured that out?
Yeah, so how this one worked is it would be three trios playing deal or no deal on the same board. So there would be the 26 suitcases. The value of the suitcases was as low as 1 cent, as high as $10,000.
Mhm.
I think it was pretty much like staggered every like 500 until it got down to below 500. And then there was uh
Like 2 cents,
150.
$1.
Yeah, you just to like cushion it out because I didn't want to be too big of a pot. Although I guess in hindsight, I could have done some repeats. Like there could have been two or three of like the 10,000s and 9,000s or stuff. But screw them, they shouldn't get money. Um, so it started with all three trios work as like they would each pick one of the 26 suitcases, and then we would go in rounds where the first round was six suitcases to be removed. So each trio would pick two suitcases to remove from the board and reveal what's inside. And then they would get an offer from the banker. But in how we're doing it, the offers came from the mole herself, with some
Sometimes
minor
there's
help from
some help from
production.
us, yeah.
some minor help. It was mostly her. We were really just there to like help prevent metagaming. So like we could take her offer, hold it later on, to then post it at times, and like the mole would be asleep or something. So no one could sit there and think about like, oh, this order came back too long, or this offer came back way too quickly. But for the most part, they were very much her suggestions.
Yeah, she killed it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I will say, because there was some discussion about this, the mole did not know what was in the suitcases until right at the very end. We did tell the mole what was in the two suitcases that were being held once we got to like the last round, pretty much, and that only affected the last offer.
Yeah, and she was already out at that point in
Yeah.
terms of like her own suitcase. Like her trio was done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at least at the start, for any of the picking of the suitcases, like because the group managed to pick the 3 suitcases that were picked had $10, $1,000, and $3,000. So the group managed to pick 3 shitty cases. That was not the mole's fault. The mole had nothing to do with that. They just had really bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
They all got cases in the lower half. But I guess we just kind of got to go over some of the interesting stuff that happened during Deal or No Deal. Anna, was there anything that stuck out to you?
I mean, I would just start by saying I think for the most part, the trios actually worked well together. Whether they made effective decisions, that's another question. But like, I think they all seem to actually like work together well and like enjoy the assignment. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Which was the surprising thing with Jessica dividing it so quickly, is that there was pretty much like all of the trios, that was the trio that they wanted. So Jessica was easily able to divide people in a way that made everyone happy very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it functioned well from just like a teamwork perspective. But again, they didn't earn a ton of money, but they liked each other.
They had a fun time.
Yes.
So yeah, at least for myself, one thing that I thought was funny from the start is Adam starts talking about like lotto game theory and posting like Deal or No Deal strategies from Reddit, and like posts it in the main chat. Since they were allowed to talk in the main chat, I was thinking beforehand, like, should I at least say they're not supposed to talk about the assignment in the main chat? And I was like, it's Deal or No Deal. Like, I don't really think that they can break the game by talking in the main chat about the assignment at the end of the day, really. So he's like posting there, like being like, oh, do we want to try to work together on this? And I still have yet to figure out what is working together in Deal or No Deal. I don't know what he meant by that.
Yeah, because I mean it's a gamble at the end of the day. So like there's only so much that you can do to actively, effectively help one another. I mean, when it came to the deals, like only one trio was ever gonna get any deal, but like that didn't end up being an issue anyway.
Yeah, that was one rule for the thing, that because once the mole would make an offer, any trio could take it, but if multiple tried to take the same offer, it would be randomized to only one of them. However, the group had shit luck pretty from the start, where they opened, of like the 6 cases that they opened, like most of them were pretty high valued. Like they took the 9,000 and 95,000 off the board, or not 9,000 and 9,500 off the board very quickly.
Yeah. So like their deals that they were offered were honestly pretty low for the most part in terms of money, but like that was reflective of like they kind of had, shit luck with like choosing cases anyway. So like they were meant to be low, and plus, any advantages should drive down an offer anyway.
Yeah. If an offer, that was something we had left out of the rules, it would make an offer. So I think most people kind of assumed from the start that it would only be monetary offers. So I hoped we at least surprised some people when the mole started offering advantages. But obviously, like, if the mole is offering an advantage with some money, like that money is going to be smaller because the incentive is to take less money and then also potentially get advantages in the game.
Yeah, which Amanda did a really great job with that, because like she was able to offer advantages without being too extreme, I don't think. And naturally Spencer and I wouldn't have let her like put 11 advantages in the game. But like she even had a good finger on the pulse with that herself, with like, in terms of like only one exemption, or like limiting the number of freebies, that sort of thing.
So it was something that I thought was funny because it was like the second offer was $1,000 to the pot and one freebie for every member of the group. And like, if I'm in the game,
Oh, that's a great deal.
I take that offer in a second. I'm like, I get a point above what 6 other people are getting. And like, I'm also earning money for the pot. Like, I don't know. I would take that in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they didn't know that they were going to get such shit offers the rest of the time, like theoretically, because the
Yeah.
only one that's comparable was the $1,000 and the one freebie to someone in the group, which that was the one that Amanda's trio did take. Amanda,
The
Alex,
one
and Shandy.
exemption.
Yeah,
So it
for
was
one
$1,000
exemption.
and one exemption.
Hmm. And
Mm-hmm.
then that was randomly given to someone in it, so Alex
Yeah.
got
And
that.
again, like it would have been more money if they were doing better in the game. So
Hmm. Yeah.
but that just didn't happen. But I can we talk a little bit about Brian?
Oh yeah, Brian was being very cheeky during the assignment.
He is committed to putting fake clues into the game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he had made a comment about like eating something with avocado, but he had misspelled avocado as avogadro, which for the people who haven't had like
Chemistry.
sophomore year chemistry recently, uh, Avogadro's number is what a mole is in chemistry. He's like discovered like the unit of a mole, which I don't even remember what the hell that is a measurement for, but that I do remember that being a unit of measurement. And then even to the point where Brian made his trio pick the suitcases 6, 22, and 23 because Avogadro's number is 6.022 times 10 to the negative 23rd, I think,
Mm-hmm.
moles. So he was really committed to the bit. I don't think anyone noticed that. I noticed that. I
I
almost
see
made a
you,
comment.
Spencer, flexing on me and those members of our 6-person audience who took chemistry our junior year of high school. So
Oh, whatever. um, but like, I think it was funny because when he originally made the comment about Avogadro and then corrected as avocado, I almost made like a joke myself in the main chat being like, oh yeah, Avogadro, like Avogadro's number, that's a mole, right? Ha ha ha. And then like a few minutes after that, Brian had messaged his diary about like, oh, I hope someone noticed my trick. And I was like, ooh, thank God I didn't like lean into the joke at all. Otherwise I would have completely outed him. So
yeah.
that I thought was particularly funny.
Mm-hmm.
What
And
else
then
was there funny?
Dexter also stood out in that assignment too.
Yeah, Dexter. He was kind of running with the mentality of his trio, so he was with Jessica and David. David I think was sick, so David was not very vocal during the assignment the whole time. But
Mm-hmm.
Jessica and Dexter approaching the same way, where Jessica was saying, anytime I play this at like casino type places, like I always just like pick my suitcase and stick with it. So she was advocating for sticking with the case, and then Dexter really ran with that, doubling down on sticking with the case.
Mm-hmm.
Little did both of them know that the case that they had only had $10 in it.
Mm-hmm. Which, and again, Dexter was the one to like talk about that in the main chat, like tell the other team to like stick with their case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, Dexter's case himself only had $10 in it, which was one of the smallest amounts in the entire game. So if I were a player, I'm thinking, that could be like a mole strategy to like not even consider an offer that could be a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
especially knowing that like the cases they had left weren't super good. Of course, there's always a chance they could get a higher one, but I mean, they clearly didn't, at least their trio.
Yeah, the way that Jessica and Dexter were talking in the main chat, like it was pretty clear that they were not going to swap their case, because that's what had happened with the second last offer. So the last two offers happened after Amanda's trio dropped out. So the first one was just like two freebies to one person, and then one other freebie to the other two members of the trio, but no money involved. And so Dexter was rallying really hard in the main chat about people passing up on that one and saying that they should, resist temptation and stick with their case, and how like they should at least get money out of it. When again, like that was an offer, and I probably would have taken it. But getting people to stick with their cases that happen to have low
Yeah.
values in it is pretty
And
good
it,
to do.
and it does make Dexter look particularly shady because you can think about it in two ways. Like one of them is like knowing that they didn't have much money in their case anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
like the other players may think that the mole knew how much money was in their case. And granted, the actual mole did not know, but if they were thinking that the mole did know, and then it's revealed that Dexter only had this very little bit of money, that looks shady.
Mhm.
But on top of that, like not advocating for advantages and going for the pot, like being the good team player, is also kind of shady because if Dexter is the mole, he doesn't need advantages anyway.
Mhm.
So he's looking like the good team player while actually adding almost nothing to the pot.
Yes, so I did think that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is just what I want to talk about because we did make this as an offer, but like because the group was doing so poorly, this never really came up as like a good offer. Where I had told Amanda like, oh, an offer you could make could involve Nick's submitted ranking for the execution order twist that we had done a few rounds ago, which is a complete crap uh, offer because like you can't like it sounds interesting. It sounds like there's some intrigue, some knowledge you could get from that. But like if you were to actually see that list, you don't know Nick's mindset when he took it. And what Nick's mindset was not really ranking who he thought was the mole in any way. It was to do with trying to put himself. He was trying to game the system for the next test, so he could put like. So he wanted to put himself and like David really high was just the main goal because he didn't think himself or David were the mole. And that was the short and long of his reasoning for it. He just wanted them to be named before like the person whoever would be executed would be. So there really was no true information to gain from it, but it would have been very funny to see like what kind of theories people would take out of the whole
Yeah,
thing.
sort of in a wild speculation. I would have loved to have heard like Brian's thoughts, especially on something like that.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe we will just like insert that in the game at some point, just as like a funny thing if we're bored one day.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Yeah, but maybe do we want to just recap like the final results of the game then?
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, so the whole thing did end with, as we had said, Amanda, Alex, and uh, Shandy had taken an offer for $1,000 in the group pot, with Alex randomly getting an exemption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
Um,
used a random number generator.
mhm. And what had happened is that what was in Amanda's suitcase, which she didn't know at the time, was $1,000. So it was a complete wash for the trio.
Mhm.
You know, she didn't know at the time it was in her case.
Yeah. But
Or
that's
you can go.
actually still like a really good mole move if you think about it, because like at the end of the day, $1,000 is not that much. Like with
Mm-hmm.
how we do money, that correlates to roughly $1 for the actual pop.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it ended up being that that's exactly what was in their suitcase. But for a mole, if I'm a mole, like I want to make sure that $1 or less goes into the pot. So she made sure only $1 went in, whereas their suitcase could have had a lot more in it. So it's a really good tactic, I think, for a mole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, statistically speaking, odds were in favor that what was in her suitcase was worth way more than 1,000. So, but she didn't know at the time. So her taking the offer, it's kind of funny. That's how it worked out that way. But I do agree that, and especially if I'm a player, like I would assume the mole would want to take an offer. So as we'll see later, that didn't really rouse much suspicion among literally anybody. But like, I'd like to think that if I was in the game, that would have like made me at least a little suspicious. That only one trio took the offer. Maybe the mole is within that trio.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always hard to say. And then, yeah, and then the Jessica, Dexter, and David trio had $10 in their suitcase that they held to the end. When they got to the end, they chose not to swap with any of the remaining two cases. And then the Brian, Adam, and Victoria trio did the same thing. They had $3,000 in their suitcase, and they did not swap with any of the two cases at the end. Which, funnily enough, if they had chosen to swap, they would have gained. One was 5,500, I think, and the other one was 8,500. So it is pure coincidence that they happen to have the least amount of money in their suitcase. They had the bad cases, which I
Yeah.
just thought was funny.
Honestly, so this is a round where the team earns some money, but it'd be impossible for them not to earn something in this assignment. But still, it's very much a win for them all. Like they won just over $4,000 out of a possible what, 28,000 or
Yeah,
so.
it was just under 30,000 could have been earned. So I think that was a very good job by them all doing that. Made good offers. Had some luck on their side, but you always got to have a little bit of luck. So I was able to assess the situation and react very appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
So I was happy with that round for the mole's part for sure.
Mm-hmm. And she had a lot of fun doing that. Oh my gosh.
She did. And then all that was left then is the test, I guess. I don't think there's anything else for that.
Yeah.
And so the test this time is alarming, to say the least. I would describe.
Side note first.
Sure.
So as a side note, this is going to be our final test that is just multiple choice.
Hmm. Yeah, we are going to start
So
switching up the format.
theoretically, like these, as far as our games go, these should have been the easiest tests of the season. Would you
Hmm.
say so, Spencer?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's interesting how it's panned out.
Yeah, because this is the first time that I have decided to do this. In any of the seasons I haven't done this before. I did go through every single player and mapped out their test score for as if if everyone was the mole, how would they score for every single person.
Mhm.
So I could really see like if they were taking the test, like if they were spreading, who they were really focusing on. And I was alarmed because every guest that we've had has pretty much given the advice about how important it is to spread. If you play the mole for the first time, you might necessarily know this, but like if you have some experience, if you've watched the show, you need to spread your answers. Do not get tunnel vision. Do not just focus on one or two people.
Oh
And
boy,
so,
have I learned that.
what is our group doing? Basically, all of them are focusing on one or two people. Like it's disgusting. Um, let's see
Don't
how.
hold back. Say how you really feel, Spencer.
Well, just like for example, so Brian has 10 points on Victoria, then 9 on Dexter, and 8 on Jessica. And the rest are just very low after that. Then David has 13 on Victoria, and the next highest he has is 6 points on Jessica. So like Brian was at least spreading between like 3 people. It's hard to say that David was really effectively spreading.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, just put like 2 questions on someone else.
Yeah, because on 2 questions he just picked ones that didn't apply to Victoria. Otherwise, he just always picked the
Yeah.
answer
Did
that had
anyone have a
Victoria.
15 on any one person?
No, the closest we had was Victoria herself did 14 out of 15. She scored a 14 out of 15 on Brian, um, with her next highest being a 6 on Adam and David. So that's another one where it's very easy to say that she is not spreading. She is just
Yeah,
going all
most
in on
people
Brian.
are putting almost all questions on one person, and like their scores for the actual mole are just based on whatever happens to cross over there.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because other seasons we definitely have had some people who would still be spreading pretty evenly at this point. Barb is a great example of that last season.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, she took that all the way to the bank.
That she did. Um, so yeah, what was funny with these results is we really only had 2 people that I would describe as doing a extremely good job of spreading. Dexter, you could see the argument. It's always hard to exactly know their mindset of when you take the test when you're just looking at the numbers, because like you could look at an answer that overlaps with your number one suspect and hits other people. So even though you hit that one, even if you deliberately hit one that on someone you already have like 9, 10 points on already, it might feel in their mind like they're spreading, even though on paper it doesn't really come across that they're actually spreading. It
Yeah.
just seems like they're hitting that same person again and again and again. So Dexter, I could see an argument that like he is doing a good job of spreading, at least between a handful of
Yeah,
people.
especially because he typically takes the longest to do
Mm-hmm.
it. So I do think that he's at least putting some intention behind like trying to hit at least a handful of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so then Adam, I would say, is doing the best job of spreading with this one. The highest he has on anyone is an 8, and the lowest he does have a 2 on Jessica and a 3 on Dexter. So like,
But
but
spoiler alert, a score of 2 would have kept him on this quiz for anyone.
yes, yes. Um, so he's doing a good job, and the other one that's really funny is Alex is exempt, and because we have the potential threat of a black exemption, and because we're just nosy and like to know, we do make our players who are exempt take the quiz anyway. Um, and so Alex was very straight about his strategy that like he didn't care about the test. He felt safe, so he just took the test as quick as he could and guessed on literally every single question. And he, by far, did the best job spreading on this test by guessing on every single answer. His highest score was an 8, and ironically on himself. He got an 8 on himself, and then the next highest was a 6. But he had a 6 to 4 on every single person, which is That's what you should be
That's
trying
where
to
you want to
do.
be, honestly.
That is right where you want to be. In a 15-question quiz, you want to be getting around 5, I would say. Around 5 in every single person if you can. That's good strategy. And then he took the test in 55 seconds. But it is funny because with his score on every single person, no matter who the mole was, he would be safe with that test that he just took. That test he took as a joke and did not try it all on. He would easily be safe regardless of who the mole was because no one else is spreading.
I love it. I love it. Alex is a great part of the season because, you know, for the test stuff, but also giving some great confessionals too. So but I also want to shout out Victoria right now because Victoria twice in a row now has had the freebies that she has once again chosen to not use, which, you know, that's a bold strategy for a first time mole player. But I'm like, you know what, you go. You know, I appreciate the boldness.
Yeah, if you haven't played them after 2 tests, like, are you ever going to play them? Because what's going to happen with all of these people that aren't spreading is that it's confirmation bias is going to creep in. They're going to be like, I've taken the test focusing mainly on Brian or Victoria or whoever, and I'm still here, so therefore I must be right. So
I think, you know, she would use them if Brian were the one executed tonight.
Yes, if she manages to outlast Brian, I imagine she would use them. Which certainly might be the case because Brian
I
got
guess
by.
We'll talk about that now, right?
Yeah.
So 2 rounds in a row, Brian has had the second lowest score. Like, and both times he's taking the quiz pretty early. And Spencer and I have had the reaction, oh my gosh, I think Brian's going to go this time. So, you know, this time he got what, a 2 out of 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is surviving. So he is surviving, but like barely. And it's shocking because like he's someone who at the start of the game I expected to do quite well, and he still might, you know, we never know. But it's shocking to like see him have such a low score twice in a row. So I'll be intrigued to kind of see if he rebounds from this. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, at this point he's pretty much entirely ruled out the mole, which is really funny to see actually.
Yeah. And it really just proves about how you really have to try. Like, it's so easy to fall into confirmation bias, being like, I've been getting like on this person, I've only gotten like scores of 1s and 2s and 3s on them, and I'm still here. And like, if they were the mole, like, you know, I would be eliminated by now. And it's like, all it takes is one person to score lower than you.
And every person who's been executed so far has scored a 1 or lower on their quiz, which is fascinating to me so far.
Yeah. In a season where we theoretically have our easiest test because it's just multiple choice, to see like these scores is shocking. I don't mean to like be shady to the group. I love this group. I'm having fun.
Cast, and we really do enjoy the cast, so that's not what we're saying at all.
Yes. This is just fascinating as a mole nerd. The mole nerds that Jamie and I both are when it comes to like theory crafting what is good test strategy. Like, this is nightmarish.
Yes. Yeah, so I guess we can just say now, so the person leaving tonight, we're about to do the execution in a few minutes, but it's going to be David, who got a 1 out of 15 on the quiz. And interestingly, like he got question 1 correct, and then he got every other question wrong. So yeah, that kind of sucks to see him go. You know, he's someone who I've hosted once before, and it was my second ever game that I hosted, so it's been quite some time. So it was nice to see him again and kind of see kind of his cerebral nature in this game come out. Yeah, I think all the eliminations this season are going to kind of suck in their own way.
And it's not to say that like the people early on like are easy to see go, but just like as it goes, the nice part about the mole, because it's like a slower game with a smaller cast, we do get a lot closer to the people in the cast as it goes. So like it's just like every execution just sucks more and more and more and more. Because we usually like love all the people in our cast. It is so much fun to host them.
Yeah, he's going to be going tonight. And so Spencer, something else that we noticed is we are 4 rounds into the game and still not a single person has yet chosen the mole correctly. which that's just a lovely and amazing. She is still the only person in the whole cast who has not been chosen as the mole. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that, Spencer?
I'm I'm happy. I'm thrilled. I love that for Amanda. I'm a little bit shocked. Well, I was shocked in the immediate aftermath of it, but now like these past few rounds, I think she's done a really good job in how she has mold, where it's not the most kind of obvious thing. Um, so like going into this test, I would have been shocked if someone actually did pick Amanda. But like after those first two tests, I was shocked that no one was picking her,
Round one, especially.
especially after round one. Like it is such an easy thing. Like her team in herd mentality got 1 point out of 10. They were the only team to score that low. And then during the very first assignment, she was the one and only person to not post a single video for any of the tasks. Like,
Yeah, so if you just follow the money, like we were talking about earlier, like she clearly earned the least money in all of round one.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And has done a lot since then too, but like round one is the most stark, like clearly not helping the group.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I love it. I love seeing her strategy and so far this season because like she's had like a unique way, I think, of looking at every single assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And like she's not really held back. Like she's done something active in every assignment so far, I think, to deceive the group.
Mm-hmm. The only one that maybe isn't is True Colors, where she fell face first into answering correctly for both of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
But hey, the mole's allowed to help the pot every now and then to look less shady. Like that's not a
And that
knock on
wasn't even
Amanda.
intentional, which is
Mm-hmm.
super funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like if you watch most mole shows, like the mole will almost always have like one or two moments where they look like the hero or the almost hero, and like they do earn at least some money. They don't actively sabotage every single assignment. They
Unless
just
it's,
sabotage
unless
most of
it's,
them.
he is the mole 2015. Because God knows that mole wasn't letting anything into the pot ever.
No, why would you?
Mm-hmm.
Screw the group. They don't need money.
Mm-hmm.
And so then didn't you have something else you wanted us to
Yeah, I
do
just
after we
wanted to,
did it?
maybe we could go over like who everyone's top suspects are before we wrap up at this point, since we are like, 4 rounds in.
Yeah. So
So
I guess just like looking at the test or just who they named as who is the mole.
just looking at the test, and then we can add like a little of embellishments if we need to. But so far, the current like top suspect as of this round is still Brian. So Dexter did take over last round, but people have more went back to Brian at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, 3 people said Brian is the mole on the quiz. Those are Alex, Victoria, and Shandy. And I think that those are in alignment with like their suspicions. Like they've all kind of named Brian at this point.
Yeah.
And then
the only one that stands out is Adams, where he said Shandy. And if you do like watch his video diary, like apparently last night he had a drunk Zoom call with Shandy, and he's just now convinced that she is the mole. And it's just like on the test, because he's one of the only people spreading, he did only score a 5 on her, with a max of 8 on. He got 8 on Alex, 8 on Amanda, but that Amanda one specific, I don't think was intentional, because in his video that he made of like who he suspects, he didn't name drop Amanda. So I think that one was purely unintentional to be that high on Amanda. But it's the effect of good spreading. Yes, like he had a good thing because he was doing a good job spreading.
Yeah, and then Brian and David have both said Victoria.
Which I think that's interesting. Do you think Victoria has done anything shady?
Not particularly. I'm trying to think back to everything, but nothing like ultimately stands out that like others weren't also doing, at least.
The only was it her, and I can't remember, was it Shandy or Victoria that got the exemption in herd mentality? Who is partnered with Jessica? I don't even remember. I guess I can go check real quick.
I would think because Victoria has the freebies, and I know that
it was Shandy
too.
Yeah, it was Shandy. So never mind. I was gonna say it's funny to me that so many people think it might be Victoria. I guess I think it might just be that she's kind of giving off a shady affect because she's not the most vocal person. She's always kind of like lurking.
Yeah. So maybe it's more about like the how
The
she comes
vibes.
across versus like what she's actually done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then Dexter said David,
Mm-hmm.
and Jessica said Dexter.
Yeah.
And I think that's where everyone's at right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that pretty much reflects like who these people that are going all in on the test are doing.
So David's elimination will be most surprising for Dexter, which will be very interesting because Dexter is the one person who is actually actively name checking Amanda consistently as a possibility. So
Mm-hmm.
she's always around his like third pick. So like now with his first pick going, it'll be interesting to see how that changes. I still think that if someone is going to switch and put it on Amanda, it's going to be Dexter first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right now, if I had to pick who I think is most likely to win, I would say Dexter is the favorite as of right now. But who truly knows in the mall, especially when it comes down to that last test? Like Dexter could know who the mall is the whole time, but then whoever is in the final two with him might not think it's Dexter, and so they might just assume it's Amanda, and then it just comes down to who takes the last test better.
Yeah, it's going to come down to that final quiz always, but like I think Dexter's pretty well positioned right now. Yeah. I think that's the bulk of my thoughts. I know I wanted to wrap up with like asking like each other who we would choose as the mole, but is there something that you want to make sure we cover before that?
No, I think that's good.
Okay. So Spencer, if you were a player, who would you pick as the mole right now, do you think?
That's really hard. As much as I would like to say like, oh, I'd be so onto Amanda, I don't really think I would. I'd like to say that I think she would be up there after that first round, but I think she did such a good job with Who Done It and coming across very pro pot and like being the one person that like almost solved it before Dexter blocks her. I think so she wouldn't be my number one suspect. If I did suspect her, she would not be my number one suspect. I could confidently say that. I don't think it'd be Brian. Brian strikes me as someone who's trying too hard to be the mole. It might be, I think I would probably be between Dexter and Jessica.
My top two would be Dexter and Jessica as well. Yeah. Especially after this Deal or No Deal round, like the way that their trio ended up, where their trio landed, and I think the ways that they were like being so pro, like keep the suitcases, that helps. Dexter has a way of like trying to help the group a lot, and the thing is, he actually is actively trying, but it doesn't usually lead to much help. So like that's what it is. And Jessica, it's more small reasons, but similar. Deal or No Deal definitely helped. Yeah, that's where my mind would be at, I think. I definitely would not rule out Amanda, but she would not be my top pick, I don't think, at this point.
No. I would like to think that Amanda would be someone I'm at least kind of sus on, especially because, again, her trio took a deal, and I would like to imagine that'd be smart enough to like be like, oh, they took a deal. Isn't that interesting? Like, because, again, like theoretically, that's what the mole would do.
Yeah. But it's interesting. We have the similar thoughts, and we didn't talk about that beforehand.
No, we didn't. That was completely on the spot.
Cool. Well, that's all I got for this round. I think we've talked enough for our 6 viewers. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we talked 15 minutes longer than we intended.
Yeah.
That's fine, though. It's fine.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess we will wrap up for now and get on to this execution.
See you next time.
In the next one.